Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Martin. I'm recording a video again for HealthyPlace. Thank you in advance for your time. In my intro blog, I gave a quick overview of what I'm going to be discussing, which is mental health and recovery. For a lot of people, it's probably more focused on things like AA and 12-step program. So my follow-up article goes into a little bit more detail about a my belief that a one size fits all approach is too limiting. Um, Alcoholism, like all addictions, is inflexible. So when you're in the midst of addiction, you become a slave to whatever you're addicted to. That becomes the controlling factor, and a lot of our decisions, a lot of our actions, a lot of the lies we tell are all linked to feeding that addiction, which is what I would define as inflexible because we're in absolutely no control, tunnel vision. We need to get that fix or whatever that is. And for me, that was alcohol, but everyone else, it pretty much is the same thing. The substance or the process of the addiction is at the end of the line. It's the behavior at the beginning. Um, so in recovery, I feel that there needs to be a more flexible approach, really to set it apart from your addiction. Your life in general has to become something quite different from what it was before. So to become flexible, we need to be more open-minded. So this latest blog that I've produced, it discusses my reasons for leaving AA, but also it states my respect for the fellowships at the same time. So while I don't go to AA anymore, and I used to go to NA as well, um, I do want to get the point across that it holds an important part to a lot of people's recovery, which is why I have a lot of respect for it. I know a lot of people who are in AA and NA and the other sibling fellowships, so I have a lot of respect for it. So, and the reason why is it's helped millions of people recover from addiction, and I'm never ever going to downplay anything that works for some people. Getting over addiction is the primary thing. And sometimes to that end, the research paper that I read, which states that the 12-step program has between 8 and 12% recovery rate. A lot of people sort of look at that as a bad thing, saying that, obviously those are quite minimal figures, but for me, the data set or the catchment of what they're actually recording must be absolutely massive because we're talking about the AA and various other fellowships. You can't really go to many towns or cities globally without finding a meeting. So even though that 8 to 10% sounds small, you're talking still about millions of people, tens of thousands of people a year, which are recovering from addiction. So for me, that's big. I think it's still a lot of people. Although I would like to know about the other percentage of people that it doesn't help. I have a feeling that quite a lot of them fall into those endless cycles where they never find their place in recovery. But I'm going to look into that and see if I can find that data. So, what happened to me in my recovery journey was long-term recovery, I realized was linked to mental health. That's because I realized that my addiction was linked to mental health. And once I did have a diagnosis with a mental health condition, I had that aha moment. I realized that a lot of my negative behaviors and my inability to fit into normal life, they started to make sense. A lot of it started to fall into place. At that time, I still kept going to meetings, kept up with the principals, set out in the 12-step program. What happened for me, and I also talk about it in my latest blog, was when it came to step 12, which is where you have to be of service to others, it felt like the rug was pulled. Um, it was not because of AA, it was actually something I had been doing. I'd been going through the motions. I had got into the routine. Made friends in the fellowship. I went to meetings. I liked my sponsor a lot. But when I realized that I had to take the teachings of AA and go and bring someone else for recovery, I panicked. Something became obvious that I was literally just going through the motions, as I mentioned, and I actually realized that it wasn't really underpinning my recovery. It was mental health. And from that point on, it marked the beginning of my relationship with AA. I didn't really last long after that. I might speak about in a little bit more detail, but for me, um, there was various reasons why it no longer worked for me. But doesn't mean it won't work for someone else, which is brings me back to the point of a one size fits all recovery. Just because I'm saying that it didn't work for me, I don't prescribe that for other people. Um, in a future blog, I'm going to discuss my very first impressions of AA, which were very wrong-headed. Was still very much caught in that inflexible addict mind. Um, but my truth is, the fellowship was immensely helpful, especially in the early stages of my recovery. But it eventually felt like I was treading water. I needed to focus on mental health improvements for me to get to the next level. And for me, the next level was what helped me attain a decent amount of sober time, which is 10 years next January. Um, so the main message in this video, remain open-minded. Be curious, try several options out. Try AA, NA, and there are a lot of other fellowships, depending on what sort of addiction you might have an issue with. A lot of people tend to have more than one. So don't limit yourself. You may find that one is actually more useful than you thought. Make friends, make sober friends. It really does matter because the people places thing, it is a big thing that you need to look at in early recovery because if you are still spending most of your time with the people you drank or used with, that usually leads to one thing. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope this video finds you well. Please check out HealthyPlace website. There are lots of gems of wisdom in there. The links to the blogs I've been talking about, as well as HealthyPlace website, are in the description. Thanks again, and until we meet again, remain open-minded and best of luck in your recovery. Thanks.